You ready to rock and roll?
Yes, sir.
Okay, man. So let's do this. Hey, everybody. Mark Rickert here with the Rickert Property Group at Keller Realty. Hope you are doing well. I am here with one of my most favorite peeps for our team member spotlight. We're continuing adventures of a team member spotlight. Here we go with Miss Gladys Morales. How you doing, Gladys?
I am doing awesome. How about yourself?
Doing well. I'm doing well. It's Friday, casual Friday for some of us, right?
Yeah. I just figured, it's an interview.
No, you look great. I mean, I'm talking about me. I've got
Yeah, I know.
jeans on and all that good stuff. So, but how's your day going?
It's going fabulous.
Yeah?
It started great.
That's cool. What'd you do this morning? What'd you eat for breakfast?
I had like a little muffin. It's like a vegan. Well, not vegan. Yeah, vegan because it's it has like, oh gosh, I can't remember the name of the vegetable. Beets. It's made out of beets, and it looks like a brownie, but it's not a brownie, but it tastes delicious.
Wow, that sounds pretty good. I'll have to try that.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So
I'm not vegan though.
yeah.
Just for the record.
You have a lot of interesting things about that we're going to find out today. I'm super excited for this episode, and I've been wanting to do this with Gladys for some time. Gladys joined our team back in December or so, right, Gladys?
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah.
And it's just been one adventure after another for her, having some fun doing this real estate thing.
That's a positive way.
Yeah, we'll get into that too. But anyhow, so a couple things I wanted to always ask if you like the content on this channel. Sometimes I have a hard time asking for everybody to do the like thing and subscribe to the channel and all that stuff. But I'm told by my coaches, you're supposed to ask for people to click the subscribe button and the like button so that we can get promoted more to bring more content to everyone. So if you would kindly do that, I really would appreciate it. And without further ado, I wanted to introduce Gladys. Gladys, so obviously we have a lot to cover this morning. And we're going to start with telling us a little bit about yourself. Where are you from? Mom, dad? How'd you end up in New Mexico? Things like that. So take it away.
That's a big question. So, where am I from? My mother's womb. It's my favorite answer. I was born in East LA, like the movie, Born in East LA. With the exception that I do speak English. Wait, no, I do speak Spanish.
You speak Spanish?
Yes.
Oh.
Because the guy in Born in East LA, he doesn't speak Spanish.
So if you were to say good morning, in the barrio from East LA, how would you say?
Oh gosh, in the barrio?
Yeah.
Okay, I was not raised like barrio style.
Oh, okay.
But I can say buenos dias, which is good morning.
Ah, buenos dias.
Yes. I don't know how gangsters would say it. I don't know how gangsters would say it. I'm not like that, Mark.
Right.
My father got us out of East LA. My grandmother says that he said, Mom, we have to get these kids out of here. Otherwise, they're going to become gangsters. So they moved us out to the Inland Empire. And then that got to, I was probably 8.5 at the time. Well, when we moved, I was maybe 7.5, but I was 8.5 when we moved. And I was diagnosed with optic atrophy, which is the deterioration of the optic nerve, which what the doctor said at the time, he said, you can keep the eyesight you have currently, or you can wake up tomorrow and be totally blind. So that was really devastating for my father because at the time he was also going through leukemia himself. So he was going through a lot of medical hardship, and the whole family was. And then, for him to be told hey, your daughter might be blind and there's nothing we can do about it. And so I was hospitalized, and it was just test after test after test. I remember the first MRI that I had to go through. They had to put me to sleep because I was too scared to go into the tunnel. And then they put me to sleep, and then I came out, and then I was plugged into a bunch of stuff, and it was just testing and testing and testing. The one thing that I remember the most about that time being in the hospital at Loma Linda was getting a bunch of letters from my whole third grade class saying like, we hope you feel better. We hope you come back and play hopscotch with us. Come back and play, what was that? Tetherball with us. And it was just so supportive. You know, I really like appreciated that. And then fast forward to 1999, my father unfortunately lost his battle with leukemia.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And that was once more quite devastating for like all of us, the family and myself. And so at that time, I was considered an orphan. And fortunately, I was lucky enough that I had my grandmother in my life because my mother was no longer in the picture since I was like 2.5. She was able to take custody of me, and I grew up with her and my uncle and cousins, who I live with my cousin now. And I tell my cousins, I'm like, you know, I feel like way closer to you guys than my actual siblings, because I do have like half siblings and stuff,
Right.
but I didn't grow up with them. I grew up with my cousins and playing around and jumping around. And then I remember, I think it was my grandfather. He was saying, how can they say she's blind? Look at her. She's running, like jumping the fence and running underneath we would sneak into the school playground because we lived right across the street. And so everybody was like, she's not blind. And I was like, well, I can see a little. But also, you know, I was a kid. Like, to me, it just became natural not being able to see or seeing whatever it was that I could see, which was always difficult to explain. Like, how can you see? And I was like, I don't know. You know, like when you watch TV and then it's like really, really fuzzy because you don't, and this is like back, you know, like when we had antennas and stuff. Like, I'm dating myself. Because a lot of people nowadays, they don't even know what those kinds of TVs are, right? So it was like, that's how I would explain it. Like, that's how I see. And then I remember I was in high school at Kaiser High School, and there was an interview because I was one of the first blind / visually impaired students doing cross country and track and field.
Wow.
And
How
again,
did you do that?
How did I do that? With my legs?
Yeah. So did you have somebody like run in front of you and you would hold on to that person? What were the techniques of being able to do that?
Fortunately, I had still sufficient sight that I could run without having like someone to follow. But in theory, like we always ran in groups because, you know, there was always like the advanced groups, the intermediate groups, and then the people who are just starting. So eventually I got to the top group, but we always ran like in partners. And then sometimes when we did run by ourselves, I kind of like memorized the route. So I remember we would run out of the Kaiser High School property, which was on Cherry. And then we would run over to Citrus, which is another main street, and then run all the way to Sierra, which was the third main street. And we would do hills and, you know, like workouts there. And then we would run back another miles. And by the end of the training, because we did mile warm up, 3 miles there, 3 miles training, 3 miles back. I'm like, you might know a lot about this, you know, with mountain climbing and stuff, right?
Yep.
It's like you do a lot. And it was so, to me, I loved it because cross country and track and field, thank you to Mr. Cook, who was my first cross country coach, who saw me out running. And then he said, hey, Miss K, we should get her into running. And then I said, and then Miss K came up to me and then she said, Mr. Cook said he wants you to run with them, but he didn't know you were blind. And then
I've got some surprise for you, right?
Yeah. So that was fun, but we moved to Fontana, and then that's where I met Miss Anderson and Mr. Nava. And then they became my cross country and track and field coaches for the next years.
They were important to you.
Yeah. And
in what way? How did the coaches? I know for me, my coaches were extremely important. Like Paul Ingracia, Mr. Ingracia, he was my basketball coach, but also my track coach, right?
Yeah.
And because for me, he believed in me. Well, the first person I felt in high school that ever really believed in me, and he left a real mark on me. And is that kind of similar? Is that in your case too, something like that?
Absolutely. I would have to say that Mr. Cook was the first person in outside of my home that's maybe saw value in me and gave me value,
Right.
which allowed me to give myself value.
Yeah.
And the same thing with Miss Anderson and Mr. Nava. Like, they were supportive of me, and I like that just means so much to me. And also cross country, because I remember the very, very first race that I did, and I was the last one coming in, the last one. And Mr. Cook and Mr. Nava at the time were like kind of on the sidelines, like guiding me and cheering me on. And they said, "You finished.
Nice.
You finished. Be happy that you finished." There are a lot of people who come out here who try and they don't finish.
Wow. That's really cool.
And the same thing with Miss Anderson and Mr. Nava, which was at Kaiser High School, because they also believed in me. And I literally started the last person coming in. And by the time I graduated, I was the first Kaiser cat crossing the line. And that was just like, whoa, to me, because I was like, I can't believe that. I couldn't believe that. And I think for me, what cross country and track and field taught me was persistent consistency. And you're not going to win them all, right?
That's right.
And you're not always going to win.
And isn't that interesting, what you're saying about the persistence and consistency, how it applies to other pieces and parts and phases in our life? Things that you might be going through now, like, real
Cancer.
estate, cancer.
Yeah.
Tell us about that, if you would.
So then after my father passed away, we fast forward to 2019. I was having like a lot of headaches, a lot of headaches. And there was just something inside of me that kept telling me, go to the emergency room. And they said, it's your wisdom teeth. So I had my wisdom teeth pulled out for no reason. I was like, I could have kept them. And then they said it was your sinuses. And they said all kinds of crazy things. And one of the things that they said was like, you're too young. You're too young. We shouldn't do an MRI on you. So I kept going. And finally, I passed out. And finally, they paid attention. And then I woke up and I was plugged in to, all the machines and stuff. And then my friend at the time, he said, hey, Gladys, he said, they're going to transfer you over to Cedars-Sinai. And I said, really? And then I remember passing out again. And then waking up in the ambulance and then going to Cedars-Sinai. And then I was rushed into emergency surgery because the headaches I was feeling was due to a pressure that was being caused, which at the time I didn't know, but it was a tumor. And so when I woke up, like half of my hair was shaven off. I had 2 tubes coming out of my head. I looked like E.T., but it was just like crazy. And the only thing I kept thinking at that time, and then I also remember hearing my grandmother crying, and the only thing I kept thinking was like, God, earth, universe, whoever is out there, don't do this to my grandmother again. Because I saw how she suffered when she lost my father, and I just didn't want to be the second child in the family to cause her that much of a heartache. So the doctor comes in, Dr. Who, phenomenal, from Cedars-Sinai. And then he says, we're going to do a biopsy to see what it is. And so they did the biopsy, and then he came out and he said, you have cancer. And then I was just like, oh my gosh. And that was really, really, really traumatizing in the sense that I was just reliving all those nights and all those weeks and all those moments of like going to the hospital with my father. And as persistent as my father was and as strong as he wasn't fortunate to have the chance that I have, meaning that I was able to go through treatment, my body was able to respond, but also the treatments now are so much more sophisticated than they were back in the 90s.
Yeah.
And so that made like a huge difference. And, you know, when I think about that, what I really think is my father literally gave his life and put his body at risk because he was aware that all the treatments he was going through were like tests, right?
Mm-hmm.
Trials.
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't work, unfortunately. So he was one of those test subjects because even when I did my autologous stem cell transplant, like they have you sign something that says we have this much success rate and this much, you know, not success. Mm-hmm. So it's on you if you want to go through with the treatment. So long story short, I quote unquote made it through. And you know, it's funny because a lot of people say, oh, you're cancer free. And it's like, no, dude, I am not cancer free. Like anything that happens is there's always could it be cancer? Is it cancer? Might it be cancer? I don't know. Let's go ask the doctor. So me and the doctors, we spend a lot of time together for those reasons. But I'm very thankful that science is so evolved, mm-hmm. and for the many, many lives and people that went through treatment so that people like me are able to have a second shot when
right.
possible.
Right.
And how that translates into real estate? Well, I am having some difficulty.
How so?
In the sense of getting licensed to be mm-hmm. a real estate agent, right? So one wonderful thing that I found out is a lot of the software, which I kind of already knew this, a lot of the software available to go through your licensing and all that stuff isn't necessarily adaptable for people who are blind or visually impaired, which is myself. And I've had to go through hoops and hoops and hoops. And I joke around with people and I say, I should have been a hurdler instead of a distance runner because I always have to go pass and through hoops. And that's like the biggest situation with it. I tried to do real estate start like a few years ago. Let's see, 2022 I started. No. Yeah. That's when I met you, Mark.
Wow. Already that long ago, huh?
In February of 2022.
That's
I remember
right.
because it was at your Texas property flip.
That's correct.
I remember that. It was so like memorable and iconic.
It was memorable for me too.
I know you've had some difficulties with that too.
Yeah. That's for another podcast or another video.
I remember meeting Mark and he was getting out his donuts and his coffee. And then I said, hey, can I help you, set up or something? Because I got there a little bit early.
Yes, you're early is on time for you, which is good.
Yeah.
She's always early.
Yes, I try to be.
Mm-hmm.
I try to be. Excuse me.
Yeah.
And so a little bit before I had met you, I had signed up for a coaching group or coaching program. That's probably the better word. Mm-hmm. Coaching program with Daniel Kwok from the Kwok Brothers. And I loved what his guy said that was taking in people. He said, why would you not be able to do real estate? He said, you sound like someone who is willing to go through obstacles, has gone through obstacles, and mm-hmm. you're going to be able to do it. And again, when Chris said that, I thought again of Coach Cook, Coach Anderson, mm-hmm. Coach Nava, because again, I ran into someone who was like, hey, even though you're blind, it's not going to matter. It's going to be more challenging for you, which it is, and it has been, but it's not impossible. And I love, love, love those people. And with those people then came yours truly, Mark Rickert, who also believed in me.
I still believe in you.
See? And
believe in her. She's awesome.
Thank you. So are you, sir. And I just realized that, if I continue to surround myself with people who aren't just skeptical of me or aren't mm-hmm. just like, oh, yeah, good job. Uh-huh. But people who are like, yeah, I think you can do it. I believe in you. I thrive on that because that gives me energy, or that gives me belief in myself, which to this day I still struggle with that, because I'm like, people think I'm so confident and all this stuff, but sometimes, you know, in reality, I still struggle with that.
Yeah.
I still struggle with that. And when I hear people that say like, yeah, you can do it, I love it, because I'm like, yeah, you're right. I'm going to do this. Like, I'm going to do this.
Yeah, I like the whole thing about, I call it watch people's feet, not their mouth, because a lot of people can talk a lot of talk, but they don't necessarily, their feet don't match what they just said. Case in point, you know, we've worked together for some months now, working through obstacles to try to get you licensed, and also the technology challenges that we have. And there were times when, and I've shared with you, when it was difficult because we're part of a big brokerage, and I was really surprised to find out that the international brokerage doesn't have a lot of programs for visually impaired folks, and so we're trying to make some changes in that regard. But my point is that it's easy to say, hey, I want to help you, and I'm sure you get that a lot, but then it's a whole nother thing to go through the challenges and obstacles together that we have to go through in order to help you and us, right?
Yeah, and I think for that same reason is why maybe a lot of people do kind of like are weary, right? Because they don't know how to help.
It's scary because even for me, I remember we've talked about this. No, you are scary actually. No, it's kind of like how do we do this? Like I've never, like we've shared before, I don't know how to do this, but there's a lot of things we don't know how to do in life, and then we start getting into it and learn more and all that. So I wanted to ask you, about staying positive, because I had a little bullet point. I've got some questions I wanted to ask you.
Yeah, it's an interview.
How do you stay positive in the face of a lot of challenges that you've come through in your life and continue to deal with?
Recently, it's Kung Fu.
Kung Fu.
Kung Fu is what helps me stay positive, because I feel that Kung Fu is one of, like, it astonishes myself that I'm able to do certain maneuvers. And what I realized is that given the right coaching and the proper instruction, I'm able to execute moves and weapons like the double hook swords or the double broadswords. And yesterday we were going over a spear form. And it's funny because one of the things that Master Abraham says, you have to look this way or look that way. And yesterday he was going over a section in Pacua. And then, and something he said, most people can't tell that you're blind.
Right.
And then I said, yeah, I know. But people also don't think that I can do Kung Fu. And sparring is a little more challenging because you do have to see like an attack coming at you.
Right.
But that's where my senses come in. And I joke with Master Abraham, who's here at the Shaolin Center, and I tell him, I'm not like that guy in the movie that he's like blind and he can like sense who's in front of him.
Right.
And I told him, and until I'm there yet, I think I'm going to stick here.
That's funny. How often do you do Kung Fu per week? Is it daily or?
I practice at least 3 times a week. We have classes 4 times a week. And fortunately, thanks to technology, he has live classes for people who want to join and stuff like that. And he says, I'm with you 24/7, so you can study anytime.
Nice.
And one thing that I also learned from Kung Fu and Master Abraham, I was telling my cousin, I said, it's funny to have training with Master Abraham when he's training me. I said, because I see that he gets frustrated too, trying to figure out how to explain to do certain maneuvers, because for most people you say you go like this and then you go like that and then you hit here and then I'm like, well, I don't know what here means. I don't know. I'm like, is it here, 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 here? Which here? Like, there's so many heres. There's so many heres.
That's incredible.
And he himself gets, a little flustered trying to figure it out. And we've talked, and he's mentioned to me that, having me as a student has helped him to be more verbal.
Yeah.
And specific verbalizing the attacks and things like that. And then that, to me, again, is so meaningful because there's another individual in my life who's willing to take the time, his time, to make sure that I get something.
Yeah, that's so cool. I love that because I feel like that too. When we started working together, that and how you've enriched our whole team, Shaban or Robert, myself, Carla, we got Kaden coming on. Just the mere fact of just going through some of the obstacles that are probably nowhere near what you go through to try to help you, but it's very rewarding, and you're just an incredible, I don't even know how to say it, a ray of sunshine, a person that when we leave, I'm always sorry to see, I can't, like, when are we going to see each other again, kind of thing. And just enrich a lot of people's lives with your beauty, as far as you're just an incredible soul, And I wanted people to see that on this video. What I see is just a tremendous human being. I'm not going to cry. I'm almost going to cry, but I'm not going to cry.
It's okay to cry. It's human. It's human.
Yeah, but
even Master Abraham said it's okay to cry.
Yeah,
I was surprised when he said that. I was like, "Wow, really, Master Abraham? Thank you." Thank you.
Yeah, but I don't know. There's just something about you. But anyway, I wanted to talk a little bit about, you've told me some of your dreams that you have in life, and it's they're really inspiring. And would you mind sharing what one of your dreams is in your life to accomplish?
Oh, not at all. I want to open out a home for aging out foster youth. I'm currently volunteering at ABQ's children's home, and it breaks my heart. Like, I love seeing these kids because even though they've gone through the ringer, like, in so many ways, they're still kids.
Right.
And I think a lot of times we forget that. And when they're adults, they're 18 and they get kicked out. Fortunately, not from this particular institution because it's religious affiliated. But for the majority of kiddos who are in foster youth and who don't get adopted, they're 18 and they're out the door and they're on their own.
Right.
And yes, there are scholarships. Yes, there are, grants for them to go to trade school and things like that. But if you don't have an address, you don't qualify. And a lot of these kids end up homeless. They end up on drugs. They end up prostituting themselves. They end up, in prison and all kinds of things that you wouldn't ever want your children to go through. And I know that if it had not been for my grandmother, I would have been one of those foster kids.
Wow. That's powerful. Yeah. That's great work that you're doing there. Let's switch to we're getting you on track for getting your real estate license. You're currently an investor, right? Like the rest of our team members. We talk about investing a lot to build wealth, so you can carry on your
That's
your
what
mission.
drew me in.
Yeah. And so on the team, we're having you make phone calls to people that may want to sell their home as an investment property, right? How has that been going? You're still kind of on the early tracks of that right now, right? But are you enjoying when you do get to do it?
Yes, it's fun, and it's so cool speaking to people. I remember this one lady, and I asked her. It sounded like I had woken her up. I felt really bad. I felt really bad. But then I said, I'm from Rickert Property Group, and I was calling, wondering if you were interested. And then she said, oh, honey, no. She said, thank you for the call, though. And I just felt like so loved because she addressed me as honey. And I've heard people saying, yeah, we call people and they're all angry. And I was like, that hasn't been my experience.
Yeah, it'll happen. You get the, well, who is it? And hang up, something like that. We're just looking to see if we can buy your house. Anyway, well, let's see. We've been going about a half an hour already. Can you believe that?
No, time flies anytime we chat. Anytime we chat.
Is there anything that you would like to leave the audience with as far as any words of wisdom or thoughts for the day or anything like that?
You know, did I shared with you what the literal translation of Kung Fu means?
No, I have no idea. What does that mean?
The literal translation of Kung Fu is time and effort. And I've realized that anything that I've accomplished or that I want to accomplish takes time and effort. So my cross country, time and effort. Took me a couple of years to get there, but I got there.
Right.
Kung Fu, time and effort. I'm about to test into my next belt rank in July.
Nice.
Real estate, same thing, time and effort.
Yep.
So Kung Fu, time and effort.
That's great. That's cool. Well, you're certainly on a good track here, and we're so excited to have you as part of our team and also friend, you know, and family member. Because if people that join our team, we're a little bit different. We're not your average team, but she's a family member. We love her, and if you guys get a call from Gladys looking to sell your home, be nice. Don't hang up.
I appreciate it when you call me honey. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
But Gladys, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to talk with us, and we appreciate you being so vulnerable and sharing such private details of your life. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. It's been awesome, and I'm so happy to have found a new home.
Oh, thanks so much. Well, thank you for watching also. And a little plug, if you're looking to move to the Albuquerque or New Mexico area, I'll put the contact info below, but feel free to call, text 505-600-3956. Again, subscribe to the channel. Tell your friends all about it. We are a real estate team affiliated with Keller Williams Realty here in Albuquerque, and we would be most honored to help you find your home of your dreams or sell your home so you can move on to your next destination, or we can help you with investments as well. So Rickert Property Group at Keller Williams Realty. Gladys, thank you again.
Thank you, Mark.
You guys have a great day. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.